Ukraine comes knocking at Biden's door. Zelensky's men arrives in United States with a humble plea. Will the US missile strike Russia if the Russian army enters Kharkiv? Ukrainian officials are renewing efforts to urge the Biden administration to revoke its prohibition on using US-made arms for attack within Russia. They argue that this policy has hindered their ability to strike Russian targets while preparing for the significant advance towards Kharkiv. Delegation of the Ukrainian lawmakers is currently in Washington to seek support from the Congress on this matter, which they believe restrains Ukraine's war effort as they seek to target Russian military supply bases across the border. This week witnessed the incursion of tens of thousands of Russian troops into Ukraine's northeast, particularly near Kharkiv, an offensive Ukrainian intelligence had long anticipated. As the Russians engage on the overstretched battlefront, the Ukrainian forces are lacking equipment, and so they are forced to abandon ground while regrouping. For weeks, the Ukrainian officials had observed Russian buildup near the border, but they were unable to launch a preemptive strike using the US-supplied arms due to Washington's policy. Reportedly, the Biden administration conditioned the provision of these weapons on their exclusion from strikes within the Russian territory. The primary issue currently lies in the White House policy that restricts our ability to strike military targets within Russia, stated David Arakhamia, the chair of the ruling Servant of the People Party in the Ukrainian parliament, during a visit to Washington on Tuesday. He further added that Russia is well aware of this limitation, allowing them to mass over 30,000 troops and equipments along the border without fear of being hit by long-range US-supplied army tactical missile systems, he explained. Furthermore, Alexandra Ustinova, the head of the Ukraine's Special Parliamentary Commission on Arms and Munitions, in a separate interview also stated that they saw the military sitting 1 or 2 kilometers from border inside Russia and there was nothing that they can do about it. Once the munition depleted, Russia started charging again. Well, since the start of the year, Russia has clawed back most of the ground that Ukraine took last year during its offensive, which compelled Russian forces to move across the border. But now, as Russia inches closer to the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, the parliamentarians of Ukraine are meeting with around a dozen congressional offices this week to attempt to enlist them in their push to get to the White House to change the course. The ongoing Russian assault capitalizes on Ukraine's manpower shortages and absence of adequate fortified defense near Kharkiv, endangering the city's 1 million resident and potentially granting Russia a pivotal ground for new stronghold within Ukraine. In March this year, President Vladimir Putin of Russia had hinted at the possibility of establishing a buffer zone near Kharkiv to counter Ukraine's tactic of employing small drones to target Russian oil infrastructure, which has been detrimental to Moscow's economy. And so, according to Ustinova, the Russians are now exploiting this situation, understanding that Ukraine is facing restriction in retaliating against the Russian territory. Despite observing Russian military equipment positioned just kilometers from the border near Kharkiv, Ukrainian forces find themselves unable to respond. The UK recently also lifted similar restriction on the use of British weapons against Russia, acknowledging Ukraine's need to defend itself amid the Russian aggression. However, the Biden administration remains cautious about the situation, avoiding a direct confrontation with Russia. This is the sole reason why Biden also refused to deploy troops to Ukraine. While Ukraine has been conducting strikes inside Russia using drones, Kyiv emphasizes the necessity of more potent US missile to penetrate the Russian defenses along the border. But will the United States listen to the Ukrainian demands?